Because this is YouTube. Hello, welcome to a Q&A that is hopefully working. This is a whole new test for me with new equipment, and as you might have noticed, we had loads of problems with it. So please let me know if you can hear me, please let me know if you can see me, but also start asking questions. I know probably some of you already have, and I can start going through them. So I'm just going to occasionally be looking away to my computer screen to see if there's any problems. But it's saying there's maybe an issue with bitrate or something, but I can see from the comments that some people are seeing stuff. Yes. All right, so hopefully I can get up your comments on my phone and then I'll be able to answer some questions. But the gist is that I got a new bit of equipment to be able to use my normal camera so that I could film Q&As in the room that I usually film in. And I'm using an old computer and it's just really slow and useless.
Anyone hearing an echo? Your mic is echoing. It sounds like feedback.
There's an echo. Okay. Well, I have no idea what would be causing that because there's no speaker in the room that would be doing any feedback. I can't hear anything. Serena, if you just put those headphones on, you might be able to listen to the stream. So I don't know. If everyone's experiencing that, do let me know. It might be that it's coming through the desktop.
Please take back.
Okay. I'll be able to answer. I tell you, it might be to do with this. So that's the microphone.
I can hear it now. It sounds okay.
Well, so you've got two things you can mute there, so it might be to do with that. Okay, sorry about walking off the screen. Yeah, like I say, this is a bit of a new thing. Okay, so, all right, I've got some comments and I can start talking about stuff. So yeah, as I said, new equipment, it's all going terribly wrong. I really apologize for the delay. Thank you for the people that have waited. And hopefully this is just like a teething issue and the next time I do this, it won't be like this. But it's basically to do with a computer that just couldn't really hack it. And yeah. So I've got it coming through on here now. So I'm just going to turn the sound down. Okay, so we've got Tyler says, don't tell my boss I'm at work. Well, I've emailed every boss that I know, but I don't think he's one of them, or she. People, what else we got? So Dave was saying Carcassonne, Ticket to Ride, Pandemic, and I think he's talking about the image, the Last Supper image, and that the games on the table are Carcassonne, Ticket to Ride, Pandemic, and Dead of Winter. So that's the one that you're missing. Someone was saying about game suggestions for a 4-year-old. I don't have strong experience of playing games with kids, but I would say that Dragon's Breath, if that's listed as a game for 4-year-olds, it might be slightly older. That is definitely a really good recommendation. And I talked about it in my UK Games Expo video earlier this year. So please start asking questions. It's possible that I haven't got to any yet. So is there still problems with the audio? Do let us know. Go back to Chrome. The chair getting some love, yeah. Big fan of the chair. Hopefully you've seen it before in other videos, but yeah, it's it has a habit of like giving me a static shock. So if I like stand up from this chair now and go and touch like my tripod or anything that's like metal, then it shocks me. So that's fun. Behind me is Secret Hitler and Railroad Ink, and yeah, there's like a what is that? A flamingo from Beast of Balance. It's not really, I mean, they are games that I like, but they're just selected on the way that they look rather than any like message or anything like that. Okay, we got a question. What's your stance on eating and drinking around someone's board game? I think that sort of depends on who it is, and I would say the game. I don't know. I think the more you play with friends, if they're good friends and you play games all the time, I think I've just learnt to get on with it. Like, I've had spillages happen on my games. I don't know if I've ever caused it on someone else's game. It's just kind of like a fact of life, and it sucks, but it doesn't happen that much. And I think it's just worth... the way I do it is I just kind of get on with it, and if it's going to happen one every 100 times you play, then that's just sort of something that you can deal with. And as long as the person that spills the drink like pays for the game. I think food, like, people can be a bit cheeky in terms of like getting their hands really dirty and stuff, so it's good to have napkins and things. Hopefully people just need to be respectful. Obviously if you've just had some like chicken wings or something and then you start touching cards, yeah, that's a real issue. But I sort of don't want to be the person that tells people off all the time and tries to, because I feel like that's a huge part of the experience, and playing board games is a social experience. So if you're having to sort of be this like lawyer about it, or I don't know, trying to police everyone, then that kind of kills the social experience and then nobody's having fun. So yeah, it's a balance, and I totally understand the people that kind of find it frustrating. Okay, so maybe the microphone's better now, it seems. Has married life changed your game consumption patterns? Not really, no. I mean, married life, we've been together for 14 years, so married life is very similar to unmarried life. And no, but other than while we were planning the wedding, we definitely had a lot less free time, so we were playing less games. But afterwards, no, nothing's really changed. But it's more actually other people's weddings. We keep like spending the weekends over the summer going to other people's weddings, and there just isn't the time to have like the big board game days on Saturdays or Sundays. So that's just life. What's the best house rule you play? I don't know if I play any house rules. I think the one that I've picked up that is pretty common is in Carcassonne, where you pick up the tile at the end of your turn, so you've got some time to think about it, and it just speeds up the game. And I just don't see any disadvantage to that really, other than that people might forget to do it. So yeah, it just helps with downtime. Yeah, that's the only one that I don't think there's like a really big one that I play, but sometimes you just throw something in like when you play a specific game, and then the next time you might not bother, or you're sort of trying it out to see if it's better. But I'm not huge on house rules. When will you come to a USA board game convention? Basically when I can afford it, which is not looking strong anytime soon. So it would be if I was in a position that I was making enough money from making videos that it felt like it wasn't a huge impact on kind of my quality of life. So if I had that kind of excess money to be able to fund things like that, then I would absolutely do it, because I think it would be loads of fun and also be good for the channel. But at the moment, it's just about trying to make videos to keep it kind of so that I can keep doing it, really. And so I expect it's going to be a good few years before that's possible, but who knows. Any older games that you still play regularly, even with all the new games that you play through? Not really, honestly. Like, I do tend to just mostly play new games. And then when I'm playing older games, I'm actually often playing games that I don't love as much because I'm trying to sort of find games that I can ditch from my collection. So I sort of give them one last chance and then get rid of them if I decide that they're not worthy of sticking around. So really, the older games that I would still play are the lighter stuff. So for example, if I was like playing with someone that doesn't play games and I wanted to give them the best possible introduction to games, then it would be Las Vegas would be top of that list, or Codenames, and maybe Sushi Go. None of them are that old, but they're, old in terms of modern board games. And then maybe games that we take traveling. So Quinto is one that I pretty much take on every holiday. So yeah, those are like, it tends to be the lighter stuff that is like either good for traveling or introducing people. Okay. Have you ever played Wiz War? And if not, what are you waiting for? I haven't ever played Wiz War, and I think when I've read about it and I watched a Shut Up and Sit Down video about it, it just didn't sound that exciting. Ever thought about doing any submissions to the Dice Tower? I thought about it, certainly when I started out. And I think Tom has liked my videos in the past. I don't know how much he watches them anymore, but he occasionally talks about them. So it's just a case of that it's just more work. And if I was anything I do, I want to put a lot of love into and make it worth watching. And if I was to do that and then put it on someone else's channel, then it kind of just feels like I'm taking away from my audience. And I can see the benefit because I can see that it kind of reaches a much wider audience. But I've also sort of seen and heard things about people that are on the Dice Tower that they maybe then struggle to kind of create their own audience outside of that. And I think it's really great for kind of getting your name out there, but is it necessarily great for sort of converting those people that are watching you to then subscribe to your channel? And so it's just like anytime I think of something, well, I just think, well, I'd rather put it on my channel because that's going to ultimately kind of bring me, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm just going to pause just one sec to check that everything's working okay. Testing. Yeah, so you're saying that I should mention the Patreon? Yeah, but it's because I had to use a different bit of software, so none of that works anymore. So the notifications aren't going to work. None of it's going to work. I guess not. Just go around the back. Am I doing rightly? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, that's weird. Oh yeah, okay, great. So I was just checking that it was still working. It's just a little bit behind. Yeah, so back to the questions. I haven't played Wiz War. So Dice Tower, can we see Serena's ring? Not right now, but I'm sure Serena will come on a video at some point, and then yes, you can. But you can see my ring. How did you find the time to play all the games you own and review? Yeah, well, I don't really find that much time to play all the games I own. I'm definitely someone that neglects their board game collection a fair bit. But in terms of finding the games to review, I just have to meet up and go to a lot of board game meetups. And so sometimes I'm really lucky that I got London on Board, which hosts a meetup like every day of the week. And then I've managed to make a big game group of different friends that like different types of games, and I'll invite them around here or go to Drafts, the board game cafe. And so, on some weeks, if I'm doing well, I might play games like 4 or 5 times a week. It helps that I tend to cover like slightly shorter games, so they're a bit easier to play. It's, you can play a half-hour game like a few times in a week,
Whereas like a 2-hour game is just, it's a lot harder to kind of fit it in. So yeah, I get it done, but certainly I neglect all the rest of my collection quite a lot, and that's just how it goes, and I don't mind it too much. What is your favourite game from your childhood? I wasn't massively into games as a kid, but I did play them. Like I did play them a fair amount. I don't really have... the only strong sort of memory I have is playing Risk with my friend Tom. So yeah, I would say Risk. Although I remember it lasting forever and getting sort of fed up with it at times. But we even played it... There was like a PC version of it that we played back in, I suppose, like the 90s. And so... like that's how much we were into it, I suppose. So there was, yeah, Risk. And then I played Catan a bit, but I wouldn't say I loved it, but that was mostly because my friend Will kept winning, and I think I was a bit more competitive back then. In your videos that show your whole collection, you mention quite often not knowing how long you'll hang on to that one. Is getting rid of games something you have to consider a lot? Yeah, I mean, really, because I've got a lot of games coming in that I'm reviewing. But these days, I suppose, like I tend to make that decision quite quickly. I've got better at doing it. So if I play a game to review it and then I review it, I sort of generally know now whether I'm going to keep it after that or I'm gonna ditch it. And so yeah, but I'm always trying to, on top of that, consider older games to get rid of, like I sort of mentioned earlier, because I've just got really limited space in this flat, and if it turns out that 2019 is a year that has like 30 games that I love, well then I need to try and make space by getting rid of some older games, and that's quite tricky. So finding that time is hard, and it tends to be just in lulls. Like it was quite good at the start of the year where I'd sort of managed to really race through all the Essen games, and I had a bit of time where I could actually sort of play some of my older games, and I did get rid of loads of games, and I was quite sort of pleased with myself. Just played Railroad Ink yesterday with my friends, was really nice. Awesome, yeah, Railroad Ink is great. Do you like reading rulebooks? I sometimes hate it, especially if it's a game I used to know its rules and eventually forgot how it's played. Yeah, I hate reading rulebooks. There's just nothing good about it. I think I've maybe got a bit better at learning rules, but not that much. It is just slow and time-consuming, and I've got a habit of like trying to read rule books late in the evening, maybe because I'm going to play it the next day, just because that's maybe a time that is like convenient. But then I'll fall asleep whilst doing it because it's just, I find it so boring. So again, because I play lighter games, sometimes I can get away with it, and some of my friends sort of have a bit of a joke that I'm not very good at learning them up front, so sometimes I'll rock up to a game night with games that I haven't read the rules for, or I sort of skimmed them on the tube on the way to the meetup, and I don't condone that behaviour, but when you're playing as many new games as me, I kind of like, that's just, it's just hard to fit it all in, because it's just more time that I could be working. Yeah, I don't like it. And yeah, like you say, when you play an older game, you have to go back through it and relearn it all. Yeah, that sucks. What's your favourite game mechanic? I don't know about that. I would say things that are high up there for me are probably bluffing, push your luck. But I don't know, really, I think it's about how the game uses it, because there are loads of bluffing games that I hate. But I like mechanisms that encourage interaction. So actually maybe push your luck, not quite as much, but bluffing is great because you're always kind of, people are involved and it's very interpersonal. I think actually negotiation is probably really high up there for me. Do you remember how to play every game you own? No, definitely not. But I think some games stick in the mind better than others. Like Game of Thrones is a game that I've played a number of times, but not loads. And there was a gap of maybe 2 years before I came back to the expansion. And yet pretty much I'd sort of remembered it all. And that, I remember when I first learned that, I found it so hard to get to grips with. and there were just so many like rules, like the ports and stuff, that we just kept getting wrong. But then I think there was something intuitive about the rules and how they worked and how they sort of made sense with the theme that meant that I remembered them over time, whereas other games sort of don't have that thematic connection with the rules, and yeah, I'm just sort of having to relearn it completely. Sam was guessing the number of jelly beans in the jar. I don't know if that's true. What is your most anticipated Essen release this year and why? I'm really excited about Deep Blue, which is the Days of Wonder game about diving, just because it's from two designers that I like, Asger and Daniel, who made Tales of Pirates and 13 Days and Copenhagen, and it just seems like it's like a big release from Days of Wonder. I didn't really like Corinth, and the river was a bit sort of, I liked it, but it didn't really come out with a big bang, and I feel like they're really pushing Deep Blue to be the next big thing, so I'm excited about that. I'm working on like an Essen video, and I've created a list of games I'm excited about, so I might just quickly get that up on my phone because I don't know why it's just not coming to me. I'm excited about City Skyline. It's not a video game that I play, that's coming from Cosmos, but I just love the sound of a cooperative city building game, because that generally I think cooperative games really lend themselves so much better to a theme that makes sense, because of course if you're running a city, you're not doing it on your own, you're doing it with a team of people, and I just think it fits that really nicely. I'm excited about Magic Maze on Mars, just because I love Magic Maze so much, and it's the same designer and it's a similar idea, but there's definitely a lot of changes there as well, so I just really hope that one's as good, if not better. I'm really excited about Sabotage, which is the Tim Fowers game, where it's team versus team, and one team are like breaking into a base and the other team are trying to work out where they are and catch them. And that game should be turning up for me really soon, the Kickstarter, so I guess I get to try it before Essen. The Mind Extreme, there's a new version of The Mind. There's a game called Alice in Wordland, which is from the same designer as When I Dream, which is one of my favourite party games, and this is another party game that sounds interesting, where I can't remember it now, you're having to say words, but there's certain letters that you can't use or something like that, so you're having to think really carefully about what you say and not make mistakes. There's a game called Trails of Tucana, which is a new roll and write or flip and write game from the designers that brought Avenue, which is one of my favourite flip and write games. So there's loads, and don't worry, I'll be making a video about it, but those are definitely some of the highlights. I'm definitely taking too long to answer certain questions, so sorry if I'm massively behind. Have you watched the new micro series Meeple People, and if so, have you had any similar experiences? I've watched a bit of it, and I really want to kind of sit down and watch it properly, but I was really impressed by just kind of each kind of episode was like a little scene, I suppose, but then it kind of hooked you to want to watch the next one, and I actually kind of wanted to just sit down and watch it properly on the TV with my wife. I was going to say girlfriend, and so I sort of want to come back to it. But there's an actress in it called Natalie Palamides, who I've seen do a live show in London, and her live show was incredible, so it was just really cool that they had her in it. Are you going to Tabletop Gaming Live London at the end of the month? I'm actually not, unfortunately. We're having a sort of belated, we had a very small wedding in Edinburgh, like a small ceremony, and then we're having a party in London, like an evening party, and it's just on the same day, so I'm not going to be able to make it. I suppose I could go on the Sunday, but probably not. I'm certainly not planning to at the moment. Thanks for the congratulations. Have you had a chance to play Obscurio? No, and that's definitely an Essen game that I'm really excited about, because it is being described by everyone as Mysterium, but with a hidden traitor. I love Mysterium. It's from the same company. There's surely only so many games like that I can own, and I've got quite a few already.
So we'll see. I don't know whether it's going to out. What I love about Mysterium is the kind of story, you're solving a murder, and the kind of the theme of it. And I appreciate that some people just find it a bit long and slow, and there are, in some people's opinions, better games out there, and I can totally see why you might prefer something like One Key, which is just much more distilled, or Detective Club, which is a lot more interesting. And of course, Detective Club is really Mysterium with a hidden traitor. So I'm not sure how Obscurio does it differently, but I'm sure I expect very much that I'm going to like it. So it's going to be maybe a difficult decision to work out which one to play. What's the last board game you played? The last board game I played was a 2-player game called Kings and Assassins, and it's like the deluxe edition that's a reprint. It's a game from about 2012. It's quite a cool little 2-player asymmetric thing that is sort of feels inspired by the video game Assassin's Creed. You've got a king that is walking through a courtyard back to the safety of their castle and a bunch of guards protecting that king, and then you've got a bunch of miniatures representing different citizens, and 3 of those citizens are secret assassins that are trying to kill the king. And so the assassin player is trying to kill the king before they get back, and the king player is trying to get back safely. And so there's bluffing about which of the citizens is going to be the one attacking. It's abstract in a lot of ways, but also just kind of has a nice bit of theme to it. And I've played 3 games of it now and really quite liked it, so I imagine I'll be talking about it at some point, but that's the last game I played. I played it yesterday. How did you like Things Get Dicey, Timmy? Any chance of a collaboration? Yeah, so is that what it's called? Things Get Dicey is a awesome like comedy YouTube series by Paula Deming, who is an actress in California, and she has done a bunch of like sketches and stuff that I'm very sort of envious of because she's incredibly talented and got really sort of great visuals and stuff. And she did one specifically where she kind of parodied a lot of the major YouTubers. So it's Timmy is in there, but also No Pun Included, and the Dice Tower, and Rodney, and is Rado in there? I don't know. But she did a really great job, and it was just really funny. She like bought the Timmy hat, and she was doing the voice, although in an American accent. And yeah, it was great. I just thought it was amazing. So you should definitely check it out. Things Get Dicey. Maybe someone can put a link in the comments. So there's apparently there's still an audio problem. I don't know why that is. I guess I'm going to have to look into it and do a test sometime. I'm sort of a bit lost at the moment because I'm just going to quickly look over here, but testing. Oh, okay. Testing. Okay. I think I might have... It's possible I just fixed it? Oh, okay. I think, I think I fixed it. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, I should mention, I don't know if it's still, this is going so well. It turns out you can hear me when I was off camera as well. What am I saying? Yeah, I'd put in a thing in the comments about posting up, about making a donation on PayPal and how it would come on the screen. I'm afraid that isn't working today because I was using like a specific streaming app that had all of that, and I prepped it and it was looking great, and it comes up with like an animation when people donate stuff or they subscribe. And then that was part of the reason that I wasn't able, all the problems I was having earlier, I think my computer just couldn't handle using that software, so I'm now using different software, and so I'm afraid that those donations aren't going to be coming up on the screen. But I would like to very much thank Daniel Mackerel, because I've got an email notification to say that he donated, so thank you, Daniel. Okay, sorry, back to some questions. Do you like Robinson Crusoe? Have played it a few times and just get stressed with it as it feels like it's designed to make you lose. Only one in the game group gets anything from it. I do like Robinson Crusoe, yeah. I tend to not mind like
brutal games maybe as much as some people, and I really just buy into the theme of Robinson Crusoe. I love how everything makes sense, how you've got to eat every night, and if you don't, if you're cold, you have to burn wood for a fire, and if you don't have wood, then you're going to take a wound because your body's getting weaker. It's complicated and it's harsh, but it just tells a story that I really like. But it's one of those games that I wouldn't necessarily sort of rush out to recommend to everyone, because I do get how divisive it is, and I can totally understand why people find it really frustrating. I would say, I mean, I don't know if it's really going to make you like it anymore, because it is always punishing, but definitely play it with the dog and with Friday. Add the extra, and with 4 starting items instead of 2, and it's still often you'll lose, but it just makes it feel a bit more bearable. What's in the Actualol pipeline? Well, I am working on like my big Essen video, like I did one last year, where I'm gonna be getting the games early from certain publishers and playing them, and then actually being able to properly describe them and show them to you, rather than just kind of doing a blind anticipated list. So that takes quite a lot of work, so I'm going to be doing that. And I'm also gearing up to do another Patreon pledge drive, because it's been 2 years since I launched the Patreon, and the numbers are sort of dwindling, or have been for a long time. And I'm now that I do Actualol full time, I haven't sort of ever fully said that on the channel. I've said it on Twitter recently, but I no longer work for Fog of Love. I stopped that actually last November, and so I've been trying to make Actualol a full-time thing. I sort of can't really afford it, so I'm hoping to kind of do a big pledge drive for the Patreon to improve that, and then with that, you know, that will hopefully allow me to kind of do more things. Like I would like to, for example, do my first playthrough that I plan to do with Serena, and I've also got ideas for sketches that I would like to try, but there's quite a lot that I'm trying to focus on. Have you thought of ever doing any live or pre-recorded gameplay vids, like you and your friends playing games? I would love to see you having fun with the games as well as talking about them. Well, yeah, absolutely. The thing is that it's just quite an undertaking to do it right. I suppose I always just want to do everything. If I'm going to try it for the first time, I want it to be really good, because I want people to then come back and watch the next one. And yeah, you could do it with one camera and sort of one microphone that vaguely picks everyone up, but it's just not. I've watched videos like that. I don't find them that appealing or entertaining. And so what I would want to do is be able to do it with multiple cameras. I mean, some of that can be like a mobile phone, so it's not the end of the world, but the actual bigger problem is recording the audio and stuff. And I've been doing a lot of research and trying to find how to do all of that and what equipment I would need and stuff like that, but it just takes a while. Because I think ultimately I might try live playthroughs at some point, but in fact that would maybe even require even more equipment and a computer that could actually handle proper streaming, which clearly I don't have at the moment. But what I would want to do is do like an edited one, yeah. So to try and film something but make it snappy and kind of cut out all the boring bits and make it entertaining. And I've also got ideas of how to try it and do things slightly differently from an average playthrough. I mean, maybe that will never work and it might never see the light of day, but again, it's just like ideas, but having the time to get to it is the thing. You said in the past that you listen to music to set the tone for certain games. Will you ever publish any of the playlists you prefer? Yeah, I guess I could do it. It's all on Spotify. I wouldn't say that I've like honed them that well. Like we were playing a game the other day, and we were listening to my Game of Thrones playlist, which is just really long, because obviously Game of Thrones, when you play that, it can last like 6 hours. So I've just added loads and loads of that type of music, but I haven't really cut out any of the chaff, and it's just, it could be better. So yeah, maybe, yeah, it would be a cool idea. Do you think you would ever attempt to create your own board game or collaborate with a board game creator? Yes, I would really love to do that. And I suppose it's just everything, it just comes down to time. And I've actually talked in the past to Adam Porter, who does Adam Board Game Wales, because I like his designs. And I had an idea at Essen, and we kind of met up about it. And I haven't had the time since Essen to sort of pursue it again. So it's definitely something that I would like to do, either on my own or with someone else. It would probably be like a lighter game, like a party game or something. But of course, that's what I love, and I'd be very excited to do that. But it's just time. We know you dislike medieval fantasy because it is overused. What is a thematic genre you wish was explored a bit more? Everything. The things that I wish were explored more are just real world stuff, but also stuff that is kind of got a more personal edge to it. So it's not necessarily about the mechanics of someone doing a job, but maybe the more kind of personal life of stuff. That's why I love like Pursuit of Happiness, because you're living a life and you're doing that, but you could go even more to do with kind of like psychology and the way people feel about things. But really, I love more medicine themes, but stuff that is kind of being a bit more true to the theme. Pandemic is great, but it's still relatively abstracted. So medical stuff, I love crime-solving stuff, but actually that's a real growing trend, so I'm sort of satisfied on that front. And then something like, like trying to survive in a high school. I just want the kind of things that great TV shows and films are about. So like whether it's about crime, which is a huge TV and film thing, or it's more about like interpersonal relationships, or like the hierarchy of a school or a university or a workplace. I don't know, something like that. That stuff, that kind of stuff really appeals to me. Thoughts on Treasure Island? I like Treasure Island. I put it in my Essen video last year. I guess I didn't like it enough to keep it. It felt... it was really exciting the first time you play it. And it was really impressive how differently it was doing things and how thematic it was for a deduction game. But there was just something about the arc of it that it felt like once you'd used those special powers, you were kind of just shooting in the dark, and it just sort of didn't maintain my interest for the entire length every time I played it, and it did kind of play quite long. So I can see why people love it, and I think it's a really cool game, but it just sort of wasn't quite there to stick around for me. Besides Skull and Codenames, what games would you use to introduce people to the hobby? Las Vegas is like top of my list. New York Slice I've used because I just think the pizza theme and the I Split You Choose is really appealing. I guess you said Codenames. Cat Lady I've used. I think that's a really cool, like very simple game. It does depend who I'm trying to introduce. Like, do I think that they can handle something a bit more complicated than or that they would have the patience for something a bit longer? Like Ticket to Ride, I generally kind of think is a bit long. So it's interesting because I just made a top 10 newbie games list, and very much that list was made for people that are like, I want to get into board games. Oh, I should buy this game. Whereas I find it is a very different question to ask yourself of, you've got someone coming over. They haven't necessarily like asked to get into board games. They're not super excited about it. What do you bring out for them? And I would always tend to bring out stuff that's like 30 to 40 minutes, whereas Ticket to Ride goes way over an hour when I play it. So, New York Slice, Las Vegas, and Sushi Go Party are probably like the top 3, but there's definitely a few that I'm not thinking of right now. Do you have any insider information on where the industry publishers are in terms of packaging? Are we going to get smaller, appropriately sized boxes soon? I don't know anything about that, and to be honest, I think there's a very good chance that it's the signs that I've seen that it's getting worse. Yeah, so I'm afraid I can't help on that front at all. You'd think with far more people shopping online and based on reviews that shelf presence is less of an issue. Yeah, I agree, but I think apparently it still is. It tends to be with stuff that's aimed way more at the mass market that you get much bigger boxes. Speaking of packaging, what is your favourite board game insert? Which game is packaged the best? Well, I really like the way Tim Fowers packages his games because they're just really neat and small. My favourite insert, I don't have many favourite inserts. Like, Quadropolis is a great insert, but as soon as you want an expansion, it becomes a bad insert. So that's kind of an issue with all of them. Yeah, I'm not sure there's any that I love. Do you still play video games? Does Serena? Cook Serve Delicious is an amazing cooperative game where you run a restaurant. I think I played that on the tablet, based on your recommendation, Monique. I was playing it like on a flight. Is that where you've got to like constantly like press things and like swipe things really quickly and stuff like that? But I didn't realize you could play it cooperatively. But I like playing Overcooked, and Serena sort of likes it, but she finds it really stressful. But in terms of video games, I've sort of got into this weird rut where I play FIFA, the football game. I play that almost every day for maybe like half an hour to an hour. It's like almost like a way to unwind. And I hardly ever play anything else. But so the last game that I really played was Red Dead Redemption 2, and I played that through around Christmas last year. And then I tried to play Watch Dogs 2 because I'm excited about the new London one, but I just couldn't really like get into it. I didn't give it a load of a chance. I played the whole of Watch Dogs 1 a long time ago. So yeah, it's been a while since I properly got into a video game. I tend to go through phases with it. If I find something I really like when I played like Life is Strange or what's the other game? Mass Effect or whatever, I was like really into it and I have to finish it because I love the story, but that just doesn't happen to me that much. Have you played Skulk Hollow? I haven't. All right, I fixed the audio about 10 minutes ago, so that is great. Oddly, since subbing your channel, YouTube keeps recommending British panel shows. No real question, James Acaster is brilliant. And now I'm binging British panel shows. Congrats on your nuptials. That's really interesting. I don't know if it's related, but that could be because like occasionally I will watch those videos. I don't tend to click like on them because I'm forgetful like that, but it's possible because I watch them through the Actualol account that it might recommend things that are related. I don't know. Or maybe it's just simply that there are a lot of British people that watch my videos and then also watch those videos. But yeah, I've got a habit of like binging like those kind of 8 out of 10 cats does countdown like sort of clips reels. Like I never watch the show live. I would probably find it. I haven't watched a panel show live in 5 years at least or more. And I don't even like record them and watch them back because I just think there's maybe a few too many like dips. But when you get the highlights, they're just some incredible highlights. And Peter Serafinowicz on 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown is just one of my favorite clips. I'm just trying to think if there's any others. He's definitely a highlight. I really like John Richardson, but Miles Jupp as well. There's some good bits with him. What's your favourite Zombicide game? I've actually only played Black Plague, so I guess that's my favourite. Although that was a game that I got rid of not that long ago just because it was huge and it took up a lot of space and it's just such an epic thing to set up. I just kind of didn't feel like I had space for it in my life. You're my go-to for party game reviews. Do you seek out party games? Do publishers seek you out? A bit of both. Are you overwhelmed with the number of party games sent to you or do you want more? Generally, it can be a mixed bag. Like I do have a lot of publishers contacting me, but they tend to be the smaller ones, people that are trying to get stuff on Kickstarter. And I do have relationships with publishers, but then often they're so busy that they don't always kind of reach out to me every time they have a game because maybe they don't have like a dedicated marketing person and they're sort of doing it all themselves. So generally, if I hear about a game, I will contact them generally, it's sort of a weird mix where I get contacted about games that I'm not as interested about, and then the ones I am interested about, I tend to contact them, but often it's like a back and forth thing. Yeah. And am I overwhelmed? Not by the good ones. So I'm there's sort of like, I'm overwhelmed maybe by social deduction games because I find it quite hard to play those like regularly, have a group for them, and there's just so many of them. And yeah, sure, there are a lot of party games, a lot of sort of more generic mass market things, but generally just from a little read, maybe of the rules or the description, there's quite a few that I can sort of dismiss because I'm not sure that I would like them. And there's also companies that I know I sort of trust they're going to put a bit more love in. So Repos, that made just one, they've made a bunch of great party games. So you kind of, if they've got a party game coming out, then I'm way more interested to try it than I would be of other companies. Why did you leave your position with Fog of Love? There's kind of like a personal work thing, but all I would say is that just it wasn't related to Actualol. I wasn't planning to sort of come back and do this full time. But I chose to leave that job, and this was kind of the position I found myself in, and now I really am trying to make this my full-time job. So yeah. Greetings from... I love your channel. Sorry, I don't know why I just went silent there. Thank you from the Luminous Cleric, and hello to Hungary. Gambling is bad. However, this month I'm hosting a game night for my friends with 10p bets, games featuring Skull, For Sale, Kobe High Society, and Forks. I don't know if I know Forks. Is that like the... Tell me what Forks is. Do you have any other suggestions? Gambling... I don't know. Damn. There must be something... maybe No Thanks? I'm just trying to have a look. I feel... Oh, Cockroach Poker? But you've got Skull. I don't know. That's a good question, though. I feel like I need to think about that. You are quite the social gamer, but are there any solitaire games that you enjoy? Not really. I just don't play games solo. I would rather play video games or just do something else entirely. I don't feel like I have... it's kind of like making these videos has replaced that, because if I ever had time on my own, I would be kind of writing about board games. And I play games really for the social thing. The first game that I played solitaire was On Tour. I played it the other day, and I'm going to be talking about that in a future video, but it's a great roll and write game. And I just kind of wanted to try it, and yeah, and it was great. But I still just would rather play games in a group. Best word party game beside Codenames that is really easy to explain to a larger group that talks a lot and is hard to get to listen to rules. That Word Slam is definitely the best game for that, because you can play in a big group, you're all playing at the same time. It's just very straightforward. Like, there aren't really that many rules. You could almost just have the two people that know how it works to start off playing, and everyone can just start guessing on their, you split them up into two teams. Yeah, Word Slam is awesome as well. It's a really great game. Recommendations for party games for higher player counts, like 8 to 10 plus players. That's a tricky one. Word Slam is in there, although it's maybe starting to get... I think any game that you can split up into teams obviously can go quite big, but I think like with Codenames, one or two people can take over, and there just isn't... You don't really get that much involvement if you're in a big team for that, whereas I think Word Slam, there is a bit more. Just one, if you got 2 copies, I think can work quite well at like big numbers, or at least that's what I've heard. I've done it a bit, but Hive Mind is quite good. That can go quite high because it's all about matching with other answers. I talk about that in my couch games video, but it's a hard one, and there aren't loads. Like Fake Artist Goes New York plays at 10, and if you can get the Telestrations Party Pack, then that's great with 12, or like the normal one plays to 8, I think. So yeah, those are both great recommendations. Wow, that's like the same question one after another. What would you suggest for a higher party game? What's the most popular board game you have never played? Probably Gloomhaven, although I suppose that's like the most popular hobby game because it's #1 on Board Game Geek. But in terms of like maybe like the highest sold game or something like that. For a while, I'd never played King of Tokyo, and then I played it and I wasn't that fussed about it. There's definitely something. Hit me with some top 10 games. But yeah, but like I said, it doesn't have to be. Like, Pandemic's not remotely close to the top 10, and that is like a really popular game. I've never played Exploding Kittens, so I suppose that is incredibly popular. John, do you have a one-time donation option for credit card? I know this donation system relies solely on PayPal. One time, if you mean like making a donation right now, like once, then... Oh, well, yeah, PayPal, but I believe that you don't have to create an account. You can just use a credit card through the PayPal system. If it's that you've got issues with PayPal, which I totally understand, then no, not right now, but I certainly will like look into it. I was asked by someone about whether I had a Venmo, but Venmo, you can't get it in the UK or Europe, I think. Thank you, Chris, thank you. Chris Holmes, that is. I'm obviously miles behind. I'm heading to my first board game convention in a month. Shucks. Have you been to any, and do you have any recommendations for things to do / seek out at a board game convention? Yes, I've been to UK Games Expo and Essen, and I've been to like a smaller local thing that we have called LobsterCon. But it can depend on the convention. Like, my recommendations for all three of those would be very different because they're all very different. I haven't been to Shucks, but I've heard great things. I would say, I don't know. I think also the trouble is I come at it from a completely different angle. I've never been to a board game convention before I was making YouTube videos. So for me, it's kind of a big part of this job, and I want to see as much as possible and sort of take in all the info, because I want to then be able to relay it to you, and I want to find out about the games sort of as quickly as possible. And whereas I wouldn't recommend that for most people, and a lot of my friends that go to conventions barely go into the hall, they just want to go and play games. So I think it kind of depends what you want to do. I do think it's fun to kind of go up to stands and demo games. So I think I do think it's also good to just go with a plan, like especially at Essen. There's so many stands, there's so many games, so I would really recommend kind of looking at any list of publishers. I imagine that for Shucks, I don't know if you have like Tabletop Together. If you go to tabletoptogether.com, they've got this tool which you can go through the list of games that's going to be at that convention and kind of categorize them, and also see kind of where in the convention it will be and stuff like that. And that can just be really good ahead of time to kind of plan what you want to do, so that at the end of the convention you're not disappointed because you kind of just went with the flow and then didn't actually see the games you want to see. So I would really recommend that, and especially for something like Essen. What is your favorite superhero-based board game? I don't know. I'm not massively into superheroes. I don't think I own a single superhero board game. And I haven't played loads. So I would say The Reckoners, because I really like that game, but I wasn't super fussed about the theme, so I haven't kept it, but it is a really cool game, and it did kind of make sense with the cooperation of being a superhero squad, as it were. What are you going to play later today? Probably not going to play anything later today. We're actually going to get a train to Bath to go to a friend's wedding for the weekend, so unless we try and play something on the train, probably nothing. But another game that's kind of on my little to play, especially with Serena, is a game called Land, Air and Sea, which is a card game that I played a couple of times the other day with my friend, and I really liked it. And it's just a very simple card game, a little bit like Battle Line, Shot and Totten. So that's the game that's sort of on my immediate list, but I've got a lot of games on a much longer list of things that I want to play next week when I'm back from the wedding. Is it harder to make your videos with multiple characters or one of your music videos? Love them both. That's a good question. I don't know really. It's kind of they're both like very complicated. I was hoping to actually, I don't know if people would watch this, but I was hoping to make a video about the kind of making of my last It's Not Just for Geeks music video, kind of talk about how it all happened and came about and what was involved and stuff. But they're kind of different because the music video is kind of maybe a bit more, it requires other people. Like for this last one, you know, I had a guy that was helping me, Dave, helped me kind of arrange the music. And then I had a friend who helped me record my vocals, my friend Rich. And then I had a friend filming me and all the friends that were in the video. And so that was a big sort of organizational thing. And there was still a lot of work to it, like writing the song and stuff. But actually, like the writing of a script, like when I made my newbie video lately, trying to talk about games in a really appealing way, that's just one challenge, and in a really concise way. But trying to make loads and loads of jokes and fit those characters, but also kind of be connected to the games, it's this weird kind of dilemma that I created for myself, and it's tricky and it takes a long time. And then filming it all, having to set up the camera and do all the costumes and do all the takes because I really want to do it as best as possible, and then having to go through all those takes and edit, it's a long time. And honestly, that video took the best part of a month to make. So that probably took longer in a condensed time, but then the music video took such a long time over many months to come about, but it wasn't, you know, obviously me working at it nonstop. What game do you think has the worst setup breakdown time? That's a great question. I mean, I think you can sort of handle a certain amount of setup and breakdown if it has to be in relation to the length of the game. Like, I don't mind, Game of Thrones doesn't actually take that long to set up, I don't think, but I don't mind kind of laying that out because you know you're going to be in it for the day. But some games just take so long to set up, like you've got to do special like deck setup or whatever each time you play, and it just doesn't feel worth it because like the game only lasts an hour. But man, it's not really coming to me right now. I haven't played one in a while that's really frustrated me. But there was a game not that long ago that I played and I was like, man, this setup is not worth it. And I think I ended up selling the game. But I remember Dead of Winter, the Warring Colonies expansion, where you're playing like this big team game. Man, it took me a long time to set up that game because... And I think what frustrates me sometimes about using expansions is like, if you're having to keep them across multiple boxes. So for that, I had like 3 different boxes of game out, and then you were having to, each time you play it, shuffle decks together and then separate them at the end of the game. It just did not feel worth it. And yeah, I think that's a real issue that publishers don't really care about with expansions, is like, is this a nightmare to try and bring in if you're keeping it across 2 boxes? It's fine if you've just got new cards of the same type that you can just shuffle in. But then even with Dead of Winter, because of the way the Crossroads cards work, and you've got ones that are specific to certain characters, if you're playing with these characters, but then you've got all the other character cards shuffled into the Crossroads deck, then the Crossroads cards aren't going to trigger as often, and so then you have to set up the Crossroads deck every time you play based on the characters that you're... Oh man, yeah, it's making me sad just thinking about it. What is your top 3 favorite adult party games? I don't... adult party games. I mean, I suppose Scrawl is an adult party game, which is basically like Telestrations, but with kind of more adult like prompts. That's definitely my favorite. I'm not sure I have any other. I guess Monica's it has some adult cards, so that's my second favorite. And I'm not sure if I have any others. I don't tend to like I like games that inspire you to be adult. So like something like Truth Bombs or Things or anything that's like, Stipulations is a great one, yeah. It's out of print, unfortunately, but it's like a party game where you're trying to kind of piss on people's bonfires. And I talk about it in my Alternatives to Cards Against Humanity video. So yeah, that's my top 3. Speaking of video games, what are some of your all-time favorites? All-time favorites? are the Mass Effect series. I like stuff that's got a good single player story that I can connect, that has like a personal story. So Life is Strange, Firewatch I really liked, but I wouldn't say it was like perfect. That feels all quite recent stuff. I think I liked LA Noire when I played it. That was quite a while back now. But yeah, I mean, I've spent my life playing a lot of FIFA. I used to play a lot of Football Manager when I was a kid or teenager, uni. But I gave that up. It's like a drug. I used to play The Sims a lot. I'm definitely missing some games here, though. Yeah, sorry. Do you have a favorite designer? Someone who immediately has your attention? If so, which of their designs are your favorite? Yeah, I think I would say I have said many times that my favorite designer is Tim Fowers. I think these days, I think it's kind of like a three-way tie with Tim Fowers, Matt Leacock, and Rainer Knizia, because I would want to try pretty much every game that they come out with. But I mean, but even then, I just found myself saying that. But actually, like, Matt Leacock has that Era game coming out, and I'm not as fussed about that because I know it's based on Roll Through the Ages, which is just a game that I've played and is fine, but it just didn't sort of excite me enough. But Tim Fowers, I really love Burgle Brothers. I really love Fugitive. I really love Paperback. Those are his like top three. But I like Hardback. Oh, sorry. Well, Hardback is Jeff Beck with, I guess he helped develop it. And I'm missing, I'm not as fussed about the Walkstar one, but it is good. But and then Matt Leacock, it's just all about the Pandemic ones, but there's just so many: Pandemic, The Cure, Normal Pandemic, and then Iberia, Fall of Rome. I just love them all, and Legacy. And then Rainer Knizia, wow. I mean, you've got Hollywood Golden Age, I love High Society. Come on. Samurai, I can see in my eye line, but there's definitely a couple that I'm not thinking of. Rudiger Dawn is another one, but his stuff tends to be like, I like his lighter stuff. So I really like Luxor and Las Vegas, but I'm not so fussed about his like heavier Euro stuff. And that probably applies to Rainer Knizia as well. So it's those are the three. What is your favorite roll and write game or draw? We love Railroad Inc. and looking for something similar. At some point, I'd maybe like to do a top 10 roll and write games. I don't know what my favorite is exactly, but Avenue is up there. It's definitely top 3. Quinto, top 3. And then Railroad Inc. is sort of maybe top 5. And On Tour is potentially top 5 as well. But all of these I would like to play more and sort of establish in my mind. But those are the ones that are really coming to mind. Those are my favorites. I love how simple and pure they are. I love roll and write games where you're all playing at the same time, simultaneous, you're all using the same results. And they're quick and simple, and there's none of this dice drafting, and they're not overcomplicated. And they have like a real frustration to them, and they also have a push your luck element to them. Like you're really trying to get loads of points, but you're really going to be punished for that. And all 5 of those games, if I said 5, meet that. And there's possibly like 1 or 2 that I'm not thinking of, but those are really high up there. When I'm hosting a party game night and someone early on in the play announces they don't like the game, I find the atmosphere changes fast. How would you deal with that kind of situation? Yeah, I've been there. It sucks. I don't know how to. The thing, it's very nice of people to kind of ask me advice on how to deal with situations, and I would say that I have social skills, but I don't think I necessarily have any secret answers on how to deal with game night issues. Often I will just shy away from them. I guess I'm in a position where I'm in a big board game group, so I can just kind of play with the people that I've found to not cause me problems in the past. And if somebody was doing that often, I would just stop playing with them because it's just a buzzkill. You just don't want that. It's like, it's anything. That has got nothing to do with board games, and that has got everything to do with how you are approaching life. If you go to a restaurant, or if you're eating a meal, like, and somebody goes, "Oh, I've had that before and I hated it," you're just trying to piss on their bonfire. You're just being negative. And I get that sometimes they don't mean it, or sometimes they're trying to create a discussion, but I just think there are better ways to say it. And of course, if you want to call them out on it, then great. But would I do that? Probably not, because I'm not that good at sort of provoking confrontation. Forks is a great 2 to 4 player game about embezzling, investing money in 5 companies. Okay, all right, cool. I'll look into it. Cool. We would watch a making of. Cool. Well, I'll try and do that. Was your partner always into board games, or did you introduce her to them? Well, the thing is that we've been together so long that my partner far out predates board games. And if anything, she sort of got me into them. It's not quite like that, but she bought me my first proper board game, which was Ticket to Ride Europe, many, many years ago. But we sort of got into it a bit at the same time. I mean, I certainly fell in love harder and sort of quicker, but she was always there, and she's always enjoyed playing them. Like, it wasn't like I had to ever really convince her. But I just, if there's like a trajectory, she's just a much more steady, and then I just went crazy with it, which is what I tend to do with hobbies. But yeah, so yeah, that's the answer. Have I tried Medium yet? I tried it a little bit at UK Games Expo with Dave Loser and Matthew Jude from This Game Is Broken. And we played it for like 5 minutes, and it didn't really grab me, but I probably need to try it again. Like, I wouldn't, I sort of feel like I'm maybe unfairly judging it. What are your Grail games? I don't massively have any left. There was definitely a few that I really tried to seek out. And to be honest, a lot of those, they were kind of out of print games that I then bought off BGG off someone, and I got very convinced that they were like, I desperately needed them. And then actually, like, after many years, I sort of played them and realized, no, there's a reason this game isn't in print. It's kind of quirky and just not quite right. So one of the games is Gumshoe, which is, I believe, is sort of similar to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, but with a noir theme to it. And so it's from the 80s or 70s, and it's, a storytelling, crime-solving game. And you don't really need it as much now because there's so many other options in that vein. But that was definitely one that is kind of in the back of my mind. But I wouldn't really hunt it out, and I've kind of just like fallen out of that habit of like overspending to get the thing that I really want. So I think that's kind of the only one that I would desperately want. But I'll quickly look at like, I don't have it accessible. Hold on, let me see. I can maybe get up my want in trade list and see if there's anything. But I've always quite wanted Carcassonne the City. I've never got to play it, and people have often said it's like the best version of Carcassonne. And I also have toyed with buying Carcassonne the Castle, which is the Reiner Knizia version of Carcassonne, which I have played once and it was fun. But I suppose it can't be that much of a Grail game for me because I haven't. It's been available to me, not cheap, but I could have maybe bought it for like 40 quid or something, and I just haven't. I'd really like to try Libertalia. That's been out of print as far as I've ever sort of wanted it, but again, like, haven't raced to buy a secondhand version of it. That's pretty much it, I think. Yeah. And there's obviously loads of other games in like a list, but they're not like, I'm not dying for them. Okay. Have you played Tapestry yet? No, I haven't played Tapestry. That was like sent out early copies to certain reviewers, and understandably not to me, because I haven't ever fully clicked with a Stonemaier game that much. I sort of respect them for what they are, but they're not my style of thing, and I think I would like to try it sometime, but I've actually still haven't even tried Wingspan. and mostly because I sort of look at it and it just seems very solitary, and I just don't see that it would be my style of game. So, but I'll try it at some point. Ever played Jackbox party games? If so, what is your favorite? Yeah, I really like them. And in fact, I talked about them in, I did like a top 10 couch games video. So games that you can play on the couch. And I put that in at like number 8 or something. It's one of those curses of being a reviewer, is that I'm always trying to play these new games that I want to review. And so I haven't played Jackbox in years, but I really love it. And the ones that I like, but I'm sure I would like lots of them. I really like Quiplash, where you're trying to write like funny answers. I think it's a bit like Balderdash. I like the drawing game Drawful. That's really cool. I've had loads of laughs with these games. There's a few others that I really liked, but I just can't. I can't remember right now. And there's loads that I haven't even tried, and I would really like to. Any Kickstarter games you are currently pre-ordering? Not really. I've been trying to cut back on Kickstarter just because it's kind of just a financial sink. But yeah, I got Sabotage coming up, like on its way soon. So that's kind of a Kickstarter game that is on its way very soon. And then I don't know if there's, sorry to just keep, apparently I've got no memory. I don't know if there's any others that I'm waiting on. There might be like one. Oh, Inhuman Conditions, a game of cops and robots. So that was this 2-player, like sort of social deduction game that is from the company behind Secret Hitler, and it just sounded really interesting. And the reason for that really was because I don't have a relationship with that company, and I kind of just wasn't sure whether I'd be able to get a review copy of it. And I think it probably wasn't too expensive. And it's this game where one person is, it's based on the idea that in the future we will have to be able to, it will be hard to detect whether someone's a human or a robot, kind of like Cylons in Battlestar Galactica. So one player is the human or the cop or whatever, and the other player has been told whether they're a robot or not. And they are having to answer questions and not give away which one they are, and then the cop is trying to work out. And I think there are certain rules about the way the robot can say things or answer questions. It just sounded really cool, and it had some good reviews. And that's, I think, pretty much it. There is a game that I backed. It was like the second game I ever backed, and we're going back like 4 years, called The Reunion. And it still hasn't printed, and people get mad about it in the comments. It was kind of a small thing, and it just had a really cool theme about trying to survive like kind of family reunion, and just all the different things that might happen, like people saying awkward, starting awkward conversations, and how you deal with that. And it was just kind of like a simple, I think maybe like a hand management game. Anyway, I've never received that. I probably never will. So that is kind of frustratingly like on my Kickstarter list as like the one game that I haven't delivered, because everything else has arrived, because like I said, I just don't back that many games anymore. We loved your couples video, almost played them all. You know, another 2-player co-op game. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of the co-op games that I review are great with two. I think most co-op games are great with 2 players. But one that I played recently is Aerion, which is part of the Oniverse series. So you've got Anirim, which is also a cool like 2-player co-op game that I would recommend, and actually have never talked about in a video. And then Aerion. They're kind of an acquired taste. Like, I can see why people don't like them, but I just really like the puzzle of them. They're simple. They've got this very quirky artwork that is quite divisive, but there's just something that kind of grabs you with, yeah, trying to solve the puzzle, and they're simple, and I like them. So those are 2 that are coming to my mind. But really, it's like Chronicles of Crime. That's a great 2-player cooperative game, because I just find with any of the crime-solving games, they're not really designed that well to play with multiple players. And so I think but I like to have someone. Like I wouldn't want to play it solo. I like to be able to discuss it, and I especially would like to play it with my wife. So yeah. So I mean, of course, it's very similar to Sherlock. So it might be that you kind of feel like you want something a bit different. And I'm trying, like, sort of my lights are blocking everything that I can see on my shelves. But yeah, those are some recommendations. Have you ever had a game group that didn't like the type of games you do? How did you deal? Did you try to join in or just leave? Not really. Kind of, like here and there. But again, I'm just quite lucky that, you know, I've only really had like my really good friends that tend to like my old friends that tend to like the games that I like, and they're not as into gaming as I am, so they don't tend to go into the really heavy stuff, and they sort of just play what I want to play, which is very convenient. And then I have London on Board, which is just this, you know, huge group with loads of people, and people tend to like list up the games that they are going to play, and so I would just never kind of go with those groups. I would never play a Euro game. So I have definitely played a bunch of games that I don't really like at London on Board, but it's generally like a one-off thing, and then the next time I would play with a different group, and then over time I've found the people at the group that like my kind of games, and so it's kind of got even easier. So I haven't really been in that situation. And would I do it? Probably not. Which is weird, but it depends. Like if it was if like my really good friends from school and that wanted to play some game that I wasn't really into, then yeah, I would do it because I want to spend time with them. And that's where you have this sort of funny question of like, well, I play games to be social, and sometimes I would just forego the game. I wouldn't care about the game because I just want to be with those people. And then other times maybe I wouldn't, but also these days very much come at playing games from trying to review them, and so I would very seldom play a game I wouldn't want to play because I would rather be spending that time playing a game that I need to review, and so it makes it a bit of a sort of trickier question to answer from that point of view. But I wouldn't. Yeah, I have done it in the past, and I wouldn't just leave the game group, but I would try and find other people to play with, I guess. What's the best game you've ever played? I don't know. That's a tough one. It changes, and it depends on the type of game. Like, I think that Codenames is one of the best games I've ever played, but for specifically that sort of genre. And there was a time, and I think it's probably still, that I think that Dead of Winter is the best game I've ever played. Pandemic is the best game I've ever played. Pardon me. So, yeah, I'm not very good at kind of just picking one as my favorite. I just don't really see them like that. They all operate in like different things. But if in terms of like thematic game, I suppose almost like an Ameritrash game, then maybe like Dead of Winter. And then a co-op game, I would probably say Pandemic. But then, to be honest, I might have had more passionate experience with something like Detective or Sherlock Holmes. But Pandemic is a better designed game, or it's just like this perfect game. So I don't know, it's tricky. Like, how do you rate something in terms of your experience? Generally, I do obviously think about my experience, but sometimes like a party game, like a really loose party game, can just make you laugh all night. It can just be so silly and ridiculous. Like something like 20-Second Showdown that I just put in my last video. I had an incredible time. Like my heart's racing, like my head's releasing endorphins. Like how is that not an incredible game? But then obviously you can look at it in the cold light of day and know that, you know, the design behind it isn't as clever as something as Codenames. But maybe I was laughing and having more fun playing that game. So I don't know. I find it hard to compare them like that. Do you have any favorite two-player games? Maybe not for couples, because we have a few videos on that, but more for friends who are just killing time. Not really, just because I tend to only play two-player games with my partner, and that's not 100% true. I also, like my best friend, when he was living in London, we would like go to the pub and play games, but often we were just playing the same games that I would play with Serena, like the couples type stuff, because it's short and that's the kind of 2-player games I like. So I don't, obviously, like I could play loads of my games 2-player. I just don't tend to, when I'm playing 2-player, it tends to be shorter stuff, and it doesn't really change that much from the ones that I've already put in couples videos. But there are other ones for sure, because I haven't been able to make videos on like all of that. But I'm trying to think of one now that's like really standing out. Capital is which is also known as Warsaw, City of Ruins. That works well at 2-player, but then it's better. It's also good, possibly better. So sorry, maybe that's a bad answer. Thoughts on Dune? I haven't played Dune, but I have played Rex, and I kind of liked it, but I only played it once, and I'm struggling to remember quite what it was now, but I came out of it sort of deciding that I preferred other negotiation games. I really love negotiation games, and I've got a lot of them, and I don't care about the theme of Rex, and I probably wouldn't really care about the theme of Dune because I haven't read the books or watched the film. And yeah, so I would probably prefer Game of Thrones or New Angeles, just because I prefer the mechanisms of the games, those games, and how they work. And I thought I was going to really love it. There's some, on paper, there's some really cool aspects to it, but it just didn't kind of work for me, like 100%. If one of the main reasons someone says they love Catan is because of all the interaction, especially the trading, what other games beside Bonanza would you recommend? Yeah, I think that trading is like maybe a bit of a blind spot generally in like modern games. That, like, I think you've sort of got, negotiation is obviously part of the same thing, but I think there's just quite something nice and simple about Bonanza and Catan, and the way you've got cards and you're trading them with each other, and it's more simple, and yeah, kind of I like that. It's different, and I don't know if I have any other games that are like that. I feel like there was one, but really I think, yeah, Bonanza kind of does it best. And then you're stepping into, but if people say that they like games with interaction, well then I would say maybe something like Sheriff of Nottingham, because you've got the bluffing and the negotiation, so you are sort of giving money to each other. Camel Up doesn't have loads of interaction, but you are all kind of concerned about the same thing, so I think it really brings you together. This kind of works, looking at the shelf. Sons of Anarchy, you're trading things like drugs and money and guns. But no, Lords of Vegas, I would say, is a good potentially quite a good place to start. I talk about that in my Monopoly video, just because I think it kind of has a good level of negotiation. You're kind of selling casino spots to each other, and I think I just feel like people that might like that aspect of Catan might really like Lords of Vegas. Any thoughts on Deep Blue game? Yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I will be playing it early, hopefully. So I'm hoping to be able to talk about it in my Essen video and talk about it then. But my thoughts are, after reading the rules, that that it sounds interesting. Like, it sounds quite simple. It's really just kind of a push your luck game. It reminds me a tiny bit of Trollfjord from last year, which didn't really hit, just in the sense that you can kind of collaboratively push your luck on the same thing. But basically, you've got these different diving sites. You will just move around to different spots, and then start pushing your luck, which is drawing gems out the bag. But if you're at the same spot as someone else, you also are involved in that, so you will also get points as well. And then you can kind of draw things that will bust you, but you might have cards that protect you from that. It's sort of a hard one to, you know, some games you read the rules and you're like, wow, I'm going to love this. And I haven't got that with this, but I think it's going to come down to the gameplay, because a lot of it's kind of about card use and I don't know about special powers, but just, yeah, the play. But it sounds like it's going to play quite quickly, like you would imagine from a Days of Wonder game. Do you hang out with, no pun included, or shut up and sit down folks much? Not loads. I would say that I definitely see like Efka and Elaine more, just because, well, I haven't seen... I used to go round to Quinn's house, but when he lived in London, but now he's moved to Brighton and I haven't seen him. I saw him at the UK Games Expo. And yeah, so Efka and Elaine, like they would occasionally come to London on board, and then we see each other at conventions, like they come to LobsterCon and things like that. So I see them like a fair bit, but not loads. But the funny thing with, I think, I found with like I used to go around to Quinn's for like his game night occasionally, was that you know, you are in this situation where he's got these games that he wants to play to review, and that for me is like sort of gaming time, and I would be so used to playing the games that I want to review, so it becomes this slight thing where, you know, it maybe would just be nicer to just like hang out and not do games kind of thing. But I was finding myself like it was using up my gaming time because it got limited, you know, evenings to use, but then I wasn't actually getting further along through my review pile, which is a sad way to look at it, but it's just how it was. What's the worst game you've played? Wow. I think I can't think of like the worst game I've played overall. I mean, obviously it would be something like terrible, like you know, Snakes and Ladders is the worst game I've ever played. But you know, these days it's more about what game kind of angered you, with how much you disliked it, either because other people like it or either because you kind of were expecting something from it. But nothing's coming to mind. I do have like ratings on my BGG, and there are some that I've rated maybe like a 2 or a 1 possibly. I remember the one memory that's coming to mind, and I'd wonder if we played it wrong, was playing a card game called The Great Dalmuti. I played it at UK Games Expo. Somebody else taught me. I've never played it before or since. And I just felt like I was doing nothing, that there was no... I was trying to get rid of my cards, but I had no agency. There were no decisions. And I was just going through the motions, and it took forever. But like I said, maybe we were playing it wrong. Do you play video games? Own a Switch? I don't own a Switch. I do play video games. I play FIFA quite a lot, and I occasionally kind of dip into like story-driven single-player games. But yeah, not as much as I used to. I used to like really play video games a lot, or more diverse mix. But yeah, unless it's got like a really strong, well-told story these days, I tend to just zone out. Like I tried to get into Hitman, and I used to play that a bit as a teenager, and I don't know, I just don't care. I guess I'd rather be playing board games or doing something else entirely. And I tried to get into Watch Dogs 2, and like when you're just doing all these side quests and they don't really give you anything, I don't know, when there's just not like a story that grabs me, I just find it really mind-numbing, and I don't care anymore, which is weird because I perhaps used to do that. But so a game that has done that for me, I suppose, is I have played through Oblivion and Skyrim, like the Elder Scrolls games. So sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't for me. Are you more of an Ultimate Team or career mode FIFA player? I've never really done Ultimate Team. I just don't like it's. I think it's because I just don't have that collectible card game addiction thing. Like I just don't find
it doesn't hook me in the way that it hooks people. Like I don't care about opening. Like I used to collect stickers and cards, football cards and stickers when I was a kid, but I don't have that kind of appeal of opening packs and like hoping I get the right thing. To me, that just feels like a fool's errand. And so I tried Ultimate Team like once when it first came out, and I didn't play it for very long, and I've never played it since. And it's weird because that's how like most people play FIFA. And then career mode, I used to play quite a lot. And again, haven't played in like probably 3 or 4 versions of FIFA. And now all I do is just the online season. So I just like log on, I play against some random person and try and beat them. And then I play against another random person, try and beat them and try and work my way up the ranks. And at the moment I'm sort of like League 2. So I'm like 1 off the top. I used to be able to get, like in previous versions of the game, I used to like win, you know, the title at the top thing, and either I've got worse or the game's got harder or other people have got better or whatever, but I'm not as good as I used to be, so that sucks. How did Don't Get Got go over at your stag do? Yeah, it was incredible. It was great. It was kind of just like everything I thought it would be. It was just loads of fun. I didn't do very well, but I got a few I think I was happy with. And yeah, people did really well. Like there wasn't much detection. I managed to get one of my friends with the guess what thing, which is just like extra cool. And we were doing it. Yeah, we were doing it like we did an escape room that day, and then we were obviously out in bars and things. And there was just some really good moments of when people got people on certain things with like I think someone got someone during the escape room, which was really cool. Have you done any board game design? Not really. Like I've tried like little bits. I've had a few ideas, but I haven't really play tested them enough to really kind of go deep. And it's very much party games rather than board games. Favorite hobbies outside of board gaming? Well, lately the hobby bar none that I got into a year ago is swing dancing. Me and Serena, we just went to like a swing dancing class. We were kind of looking for something to do together that wasn't board gaming, but that was also just a bit active, and just fell in love like immediately. And now it's just like a real passion. And I wish I'd got into it sort of 10 years ago when I was a bit younger. And I can't sort of, in the way that when I first got into board games, like I could sense really early on that this was it now. Like I am a board gamer, and I very much feel that about swing dancing. Like barring sort of injury, I kind of feel like I'm going to be doing it as long as I can physically can, and I'm obsessed with it. And it's hard to be good at, but I'm really enjoying it and making friends through it. It's really social, but I love that it's active. Like I'm not like super lazy, but I hate exercise, like sort of forced exercise and going to the gym. And I've always wanted something that kind of got me being active. And I used to be on a football team, but I was never that good. And this is just like the perfect thing that it gets you your heart racing and gets you sweating like however many times a week you want to do it. But it's so much fun that it never feels like a chore. So that is by far my biggest hobby. In terms of like something I can kind of get into and get geeky about. But of course, like I do what everyone else does in the sense that I love watching Netflix shows, I watch films, although not as much as I used to, and not just Netflix, TV shows. I read occasionally. I would love to have more time to be kind of doing writing like what I used to do, like comedy writing, you know, whether it's TV or I would really love to like write a play. It's just whether I'll be able to find the time for that. And eating out, like I love food. I love going to restaurants. That's just one of my favorite pastimes, but I wouldn't really call that a hobby. That's kind of it, really. List a handful of favorite movies, TV shows, novels. Movies, I would say it tends to sort of go back a bit. Like, I don't know, I need to update my references, but I don't know about newer movies. Arrival was a really good one, actually, of a newer thing. So if we're going for like drama stuff, then like Arrival and Moon, like stuff that has really like sort of made me feel things. And then I love like romantic comedies like Love Actually and Four Weddings and a Funeral and About Time, like Richard Curtis stuff. But then my real kind of favorites of all time are things that like, they're kind of like comedy dramas, like they're really funny, but they've also got a heart. So like The Big Lebowski, Shaun of the Dead, Adaptation is a film that I used to really love, although I haven't watched it in many years. These are the kind of the ones that I used to list. There's definitely a couple that I'm missing here. And then TV shows, comedy-wise, my favorites are Arrested Development, 30 Rock, Veep, Peep Show, although it kind of tailed off. Those are like my favorite sitcoms, or those Happy Endings, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And then more like comedy drama stuff, really love Weeds. I really love The Wire. Anything that's like, yeah, got some kind of drama, but there has to be a bit of humor. So I can't, like, I've watched all of Breaking Bad, but it takes itself way too seriously. And so that's why I love something like Weeds or Orange is the New Black. Shameless, the American version. Friday Night Lights is amazing. Veronica Mars. Yeah, I've got a list somewhere. I quite like Black Sails. Game of Thrones is obviously up there. And then there were shows that I really loved, like Lost and Dexter, but they kind of I've got the posters up on my wall. That they leave a sour taste, so I don't know how I feel about them anymore. Favorite negotiation games? Yeah, it's been a while since I don't get to play negotiation games that much, and the ones I really love tend to be quite long. I would say, based on my memory, this could all change, that my favorite is probably Nothing Personal, the game that Tom Vassell designed. I think it's really good. But also up there, and potentially a contender for best, is New Angeles, which is a completely underrated Fantasy Flight game that I've done a review of. Game of Thrones, although I wouldn't really class it as heavy a negotiation game as the others, I don't know how you describe that. Spartacus is an awesome game from Gale Force 9, which has got some take that, but if you can get into it. Sons of Anarchy, which is also great, and from them. La Cosa Nostra, which is another mafia theme game, which is brutal, but I really like that. There's a few that I'm forgetting. Corporate America is a really great one that I've reviewed in the past. But yeah, Nothing Personal is the one with the best memories, and New Angeles as well. And I really would love to. They're the kind of on the list of games that I really should get back to the table when I have like an opportunity to just play whatever I want. You say Troll Fjord wasn't a hit, but I'd argue that it has a little too many hits. Yes. Are there any games you regret selling, getting rid of? Not really. I think I'm just lucky that I'm always playing new stuff, so I never really get too much time to stop and think, and like, there's things like when I part with them that I'm like, oh, should I be, like I recently got rid of Order of the Gilded Compass, which is a really good game that I actually sort of filmed a review of, but then it got lost in the sands of time when I was too busy, and I would really recommend it, but it just felt I was kind of almost looking for reasons to get rid of games, and the reason I got rid of that one was because I just felt like the setup time and all the different rules of the modules, it just kind of like I had bad memories of trying to bring it out every time I did, and so I would totally play it again. I think it's a cool game, so I don't have a regret of getting rid of it, but it was sort of a bit of a hard decision, and there's probably a few others like that. What were the main impetuses for you to start Actualol? Did you identify a gap in the hobby? It's a good question. Why did I start doing it? It was to do with kind of where I was in my life. So we're talking like 4 years ago, and I was
trying to make a career out of writing for TV, and I had some credits here and there, and I was a professional writer, but it was about a regularity of work, and you were constantly having to work for free on spec, and it was so demoralizing, and it just took a toll over. We're talking like 5 years or more, and I was looking for something else, something that I could put my creativity into, and that hopefully one day that I could make some money from it, so that it could be. It's so funny. I mean, I knew this at the time, to look at YouTube as something that would offer some stability, but I did see, the Dice Tower and Shut Up and Sit Down, who were able to make this full-time career out of it, that they were able to kind of bring in relatively stable income, and I saw Patreon as well, and as an option, and I kind of thought, well, maybe that's the hope, and it was a case of, obviously I wouldn't have done it without an insane passion for board games. And also, like you say, that I sort of spotted a gap where I could use my talents that I had, which was comedy writing, bring some jokes to it. I had no idea whether I could present. And in fact, I'd done videos at uni where I felt that very much I could not be in front of a camera. And so it was a test, and I thought it would fail. And I thought that would be the kind of the stumbling block, that I wouldn't be able to. I'd never acted before, so I felt like I probably wouldn't be able to pull that off, and I didn't think I'd be able to kind of talk to camera and it would be that people would like it. But I just had to try, because I really felt like I was at my wit's end and I didn't know what else to do. I wanted to pursue something where I could use my skills. I didn't want to just consign myself to doing something that I wasn't able to kind of write in. So yeah, those are some of the reasons, and there's kind of others, and but that's something of a kind of potted history of that period, and and like I say, it's weird to kind of see YouTube as something that's stable, because it is very much not, but it was way more kind of it could provide a bit more stability than the work I was doing, which was literally like you could work for 6 months and never know whether there would be any money at the end of it, and that's just mad. Are there any... What is the most useful game promo you have played with? I don't know about that. I don't know that there's any promos that I really have used that much. Okay, I'm looking around, so I saw one. New York Slice, the promo, they had like a promo set, which was added those, I forget what they're called, but they're like the little rule cards that you can divvy out, and they change the way the points score. They're amazing, and they should be a proper expansion. They're so much more than a promo. They really enhance the game, so they're the best one, yeah. The Rich Summer promo for Dead of Winter, I wouldn't say is that useful, because when I played with him, he died, and I think killed the whole colony. I can't remember. He did something terrible. So that was kind of funny. But I've played with him. It's that's a cool promo. But other one, I wouldn't say other ones I've really. They're just kind of in my games, and I barely remember that they're even promos. Guess what? Is there a game you found surprisingly educational? That's a good question. I think there is. I think there is, but I'm just struggling to think about. I think sometimes it's just some games are nicely educational in the sense of you might just learn some weird bit of knowledge about, Santorini will give you a name of a bunch of Greek gods that you might then end up sort of looking up or something like that. I think 878 Vikings has got some cool history to it, and 1812 Invasion of Canada when I played that. It's literally got history written in the back of the book, but also the kind of the cards and I think just the fact that it exists and I ended up playing it because it was well reviewed by Shut Up and Sit Down taught me something about this conflict that I probably didn't know a lot about because I didn't grow up in America and I didn't study history to any great degree at school. Like I didn't even do it to GCSE. So I don't have loads of history knowledge. And so anything that kind of throws things in, but man, there's bound to be some good ones. Maybe suggest some and I'll tell you if I agree or not. Prospero Hall are in. Hello. I was thinking about, what was a game of theirs that I was thinking about the other day? Oh yeah, Push. I'm going to be talking about in a video that is designed by Prospero Hall. It was a really good push your luck card game that I don't think is available in the UK, and that's a real shame. I don't even know if it's in Europe, but it's definitely in America. And it's got this 80s like look to it. Looks a bit like Uno, and it's just a really clean, awesome push your luck card game. And look out for my best games probably of September, and it will be in that, if not maybe the next month. If you'd like to rival, did you check out Blade Runner 2049? Maybe you'll like the new Dune movie. I actually did, and I didn't like it. And I know that that's probably like sacrilege, but I don't know. I found it. It's been a while, so it's hard to be critical of something that you don't really remember. But Arrival had such an emotional heart to it. It was really talking about like what it is to be kind of human, and that's why I love Moon and other sci-fi films like that, where it really makes you think about your own existence. And Blade Runner did not do that for me at all, and it was just kind of a glossy like action thing. And obviously deep down there are some questions in Blade Runner about being a replicant and being not a real human, and do they deserve to exist and stuff. But I feel like Battlestar Galactica does that better, and other things do that better, and so yeah. Tom's name is no longer on Nothing Personal, the revised edition. Yeah, that's really interesting that. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I didn't back the new revised edition, partly because I just love the existing game, and I don't know if I looked at the rules at all, but I didn't massively have faith in, like, if the fact they've taken his name off, does that mean they've changed it so much? And I feel like he was obviously integral to the original design, so I'm just not sure I'd be that convinced by the changes that they've made. I did back for just like the location cards that they added, because I just felt like they were just an easy add. I think one of my friends backed the revised edition, so maybe I'll try it out, but I think it's a shame. I think one of the big shames about that game is that it could so easily be a Game of Thrones, like it could be rethemed, like that. If it wasn't maybe tied up, I don't know how the contracts work, but if Tom was and I'm sure they wouldn't want to sign it because they've already got Game of Thrones games, but that hierarchical system just can be so easily represented by the king and then the small council in Game of Thrones, and you can have all the amazing characters from that universe, and every single mechanism fits the theme. And I know originally that that's actually what they intended, was like a more like medieval kind of theme, a classic like king of that era that obviously Game of Thrones is inspired by. And I see why they didn't do that, because I just don't think it's as appealing as a theme. But when you put Game of Thrones on it, wow, that would sell, and it's just a really good design. Have I played Sidereal Confluence? I played it once at LobsterCon. Efka was running it. It was intense. I didn't dislike it, but I found it, I think, a bit too sort of like, oh man, it's so complicated. I would never want to set that game up, and I had always been sold it as like this big negotiation game, and I just felt like that is only a small part of it, and really how you win the game and the kind of crux of what your brain is going on about is very much these engines that you have, and that doesn't excite me nearly as much. And so if I'm going to play a long game, I would just much rather lean into the heavy negotiation and play New Angeles or Nothing Personal. And so I totally get why people like it. It's just way too kind of Euro-y and much of a brain melt than I would want from a game. Specials of the day for New York Slice. Best British comedies of all time go. Well, it's very much of my generation, but Brass Eye, The Office, Extras to some extent, Peep Show, Big Train a little bit, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, I quite like Gavin and Stacey, although it's kind of waned a bit, but that's a more kind of mainstream one that I like. I'm definitely missing some, but there's definitely kind of a period I really enjoyed, and then it hasn't always kind of stayed at that level, and I feel like there aren't as many of a kind of modern era that really click with me. But there are some. Detectorist is one that I really like. It's very sweet. Which game would you recommend to play with my wife, 2-player, but also that works for 4 to 6 players? Wow. That is tricky. I really don't know. That is almost impossible to pull off. I think Ticket to Ride is one of the best games that has a good mixture of player counts. You can, from 2 to 5. It doesn't go to 6. I think it's almost impossible. Maybe something cooperative. It's like, I guess you could play like Chronicles of Crime at 6, but I'm not sure you'd want to. Detective, I think, is set to play at what, 5? And it's all right. But I think you'd also really enjoy it too. So maybe, but I'm not really confident about that. Do I know the Shut Up Sit Down dudes at all? Yeah, I've like I said earlier in the video, I've hung out with Quinns a few times. Like, he used to invite me around to his games nights, so I know him the best. And then I've met Matt because we did a live playthrough on their channel of Meeple Circus, and I've met him like a couple of times at conventions and stuff, but I wouldn't say like I know him very well. And then Paul, I've met, I think, maybe only once at UK Games Expo, and it was very much in passing. Like, I haven't sort of hung out and like chatted to him at any great length. So at least they know I exist. War games are good for teaching history tidbits. Yeah. If you like Nothing Personal, have you ever played the old Kremlin game? Yeah, I have. And that was kind of one of my Grail games that I really tried to get hold of. And then it took me a long time to get it to the table, and I was really quite disappointed by it. Love the theme of it, and I do love the kind of hierarchy system that Nothing Personal borrowed, but I really think they took it and made it so much better. There's just so much luck to Kremlin, and it's just kind of, it just felt all over the place, and there was some bits that I was really loving, and thematically it's so cool with you like being sent to Siberia, or like how you might be ill, and like assassination attempts, and it really fits the theme, but I just ended up sort of hating it and just feeling like it was a real mess, and would never touch it again. But we played the modern variant, but judging by the rules that I read of, I think we played the modern variant, but judging by the rules that I read of the other ones, that I wouldn't touch any of them personally. How many times do you try to play a game before deciding when to review it? That varies, and it also depends. Like, if I'm doing like a full review, then I'll play it a lot of times. But if I'm, when I was doing my games I've been playing recently, then it would tend to be more like 2 or 3 times. And it depends on the game. Like, if it's a party game, then you just know. You don't need to play it loads and loads of times. If it's a more complicated game, then there may be a lot to see about it, or you've got to come at it. But I generally, the more you play games, the more I've reviewed games, almost always in that first game. It's very, very, very rare that I would play a game a second or a third time and suddenly have my opinion change about it. But that is also, again, to do with the type of games I play. Like, I don't play these big, heavy Euro games where the strategy might only reveal itself to you after playing it lots of times. And there's very few instances of where I've sort of made up my mind about a game and then that's been changed dramatically. Ethnos is pretty good, 2 to 6 players. Yeah, good tip. Right, well, I think I'm gonna stop it very soon. There's only a couple of questions left, and I've been going for quite a while. So yeah, if you've got any last questions, then send them in. But otherwise, I'll just end it soon. Why Secret Hitler and Railroad Ink behind you? They're just because it looks nice. I just wanted like a pinky, orangey red theme against the blue, and they're good looking boxes and they fit the shape of the shelves, so it's really just down to that. But they are games that I like, otherwise I wouldn't have them in my flat. What are some of your favorite 2+ hour games? Well, I've talked about some of them already. I mean, I really like Detective, the crime solving game from last year that goes very long. Game of Thrones, I love Battlestar Galactica, I love, although I haven't played it in a long time, Spartacus is another one that goes long. And then New Angeles, La Cosa Nostra. Negotiation games just tend to really stay. Robinson Crusoe, I would say, probably takes 2 hours at least, depending on scenarios, especially if you consider setup. So yeah, those, I don't have loads of them, but they do, Dead of Winter's another one. They do tend to be games that I really love. Like I find when it comes to that heavier, the longer length and the more complicated rules, I'm way more picky. It has to be like a near perfect game. So it's like people often sort of say that I'm not a heavy gamer, and I don't like really heavy Euro games. But if there's a game that is heavy and it really hits the spot on the theme and the gameplay and it's interactive and tells a story and it works for me, then I love it. And it's often one of my... So all those games that I've just described are like pretty much like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 for me. Whereas any game that isn't hitting that spot for me is just straight out. Like I don't want to spend 3 hours or 4 hours playing a game that's not that exciting to me. It has to be great. And so that's kind of the way it goes. What is the worst mix of app and board game you've encountered? Have any really disappointed you? That's a good question. I don't know if there's any... I'm just trying to think of the ones that I have used. So Chronicles of Crime, I think, does it well. It uses it a lot, but I didn't have any problems with the integration. Detective, I really like that because you're using like a laptop, so it's not really such an issue. Oh man, what are some other app games? I don't know that I've ever had a real problem. I think XCOM was one of the first app games that I got, and I was quite excited about it. And I found it frustrating, not because the app was necessarily bad, but because it was trying to teach you the rules with the app, and I just found it a really annoying way to teach, and I desperately just wanted a rule book, and I really found it hard to work out the rules intricacies of that game, and it just killed the first or 1 or 2 experiences of it. And yeah, I just think that hopefully they've learned some lessons since then. And like Mansions of Madness, you know, obviously had quite an involved app, and even though I don't have that game anymore, I didn't really like the game. I thought the app was pretty good on that, so nothing standing out that I can think of. In order for games to not just be for geeks anymore, what else needs to happen? As in, how does that message break through? The hobby's growing, but not sure it's on the cusp of getting big. Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's something that I think about all the time. And I was thinking about it from a kind of publisher's point of view when I was working for Fog of Love, but I also just think about it because I feel like I'm an advocate for that type of thing. I want it to grow, not just because it would help me as a reviewer, but because I don't want it to kind of be this niche thing anymore. I want it to be everywhere. I want to not have to tell people that I play board games and they don't know what I'm talking about. And not because that's embarrassing or anything, but I just want to be able to share it with more people. I feel like there's this weird wall that so many people have, and to be honest, I think people have it about a lot of things, and it's like this weird psychological barrier of like, they played games as a kid, so they think they're just for kids, or they played Monopoly and they don't have like strong positive memories about those types of games, because of course they don't, they're not that good. And so then they just dismiss all board games as being like that. Or that they just think that board games are for like this subsection. For me, I think that board games are for everyone, and that if you like Cards Against Humanity, then there are a lot of board games that you would like. And if you like, I don't know, Exploding Kittens, there are loads of board games that you would like. But some people will just kind of keep themselves to that just tiny niche. And of course, some people don't even play them. What do we need to do? I think time is a huge part of it. I think that, honestly, I feel like celebrity endorsements, weirdly, like not paid for ones, but I feel like that is huge. I think the fact that Kristen Bell plays Catan and talks about it, and it's just kind of a normal thing for her, is massive. I don't know the impact of it, and I just wish there were more people like that. And I don't know how we reach celebrities, because they're just like they're normal people too, and like they're gonna have all of those same hang-ups of not wanting to do stuff as well. But I do think the kind of approachable, I think we are making huge strides in terms of it has to be approachable artwork, and to me it has to be an approachable theme. So Pandemic is so approachable, everyone gets that instantly. You just like, oh, it's a game about like the world is overtaken by disease, imagine like bird flu or something, and you can describe it. But with something like a fantasy or sci-fi theme, people see it as geeky, and I'm on their side generally. And I think it's about trying to, I think more themes with kind of cinematic ideas, stories that people just get, like crime solving, that they've seen a film or a TV series and it feels like that. But box art is huge. And then I don't know. I honestly don't know how you break through beyond that. I think the rest of it is kind of slow growth, and the more these games sell, then the more the big, I think it would be really important to be in big shops. But how do you get in those big shops? Well, you have to prove that you're selling enough for them to want to then stock them. So, yeah. I wish I knew the answer. I definitely do everything I can, and I have lots of other videos and things that I would love to make that I really want to kind of are targeted at that kind of audience. What kind of legacy games have you played? My friend group is playing Betrayal Legacy right now. Great game. I've started Risk Legacy and I've played Pandemic Legacy. I tried Charterstone and it wasn't for me. And I don't know if I've played many other Legacy games. And I really like Risk Legacy, but I sort of played it with a group of old friends and we haven't had a chance to get back together. But I do think that ultimately I will enjoy that experience once it's finished. Pandemic Legacy, I played 2-player with Serena, and I just kind of feel like I found it somewhat of a chore to keep going back to, and I didn't like the way it constantly added these rules that I had to remember each time, and there was just a lot of setup each time. And I love Pandemic, and I did enjoy the experience, but I'm holding back a bit on going on season 2 because I kind of just like Pandemic as it is to some extent. It's complicated. So yeah, I'm a bit wary about some Legacy games, but I am looking forward to trying Clank Legacy, and I think it's really just about the implementation. As long as there isn't loads of kind of admin and new rules to remember each time, but that it does give you this story that progresses, that, that's kind of what I'm looking for. What has been your high point of the day before starting up the live stream? Oh, good question. I wouldn't say it's been a pretty average day. So really just, being with Serena because she was working from home today. What, if any, game in your collection do you keep maybe... Sorry, I don't know why I'm whispering again. What, if any, game in your collection do you keep maybe for nostalgia reasons but likely will never play again? What game do you keep solely as a collectible? I don't really keep anything as a collectible. I'm not really that much of a collector. Nostalgia reasons, there's nothing I would never play again, but there are a lot of games, like these longer ones that I just don't play, but I keep because I know that when I do play them, I love them. And so, yeah, something like Spartacus, New Angeles, Sons of Anarchy. Like, the negotiation games are hard to get to the table for me, but I really love them. And then other ones, maybe like niche party games. There's a game called Serrano where you write poetry, and I loved it. But I've only played it like a couple of times, and I haven't. That's years ago, but I'm keeping it because one day I will play it again. And another one is like creative type party games. So there's a game called Ex Libris where you have to write. It's not the one you're thinking of. It's like a party game where you have to write the start of books. So it's like Balderdash, but you're writing the opening line to a book. And I just think I love stuff like that, but you can only play it with a certain group. And so that's why it doesn't get played. How many games are in your collection? Roughly, like, if you're talking like base games, is about 300, which is good going for me because it used to be up to about 430. But if you add in expansions, it gets a lot more than that. But generally, my expansions are in the same box, so I just sort of don't really count it. What countries would you like to visit? Good question. Loads. I mean, in terms of like going on holiday, I would like to go back to places I've already been to. I really like to go to France. I want to go back to Amsterdam and Berlin, and different parts of America. But places I've never been to, well, it's just loads. I would like to go to Canada. I would like to go to Costa Rica. I would like to go to Cuba. Anywhere that's got some like good food and a bit of kind of culture interests me. In Europe, Turkey I'd like to go to. I really want to go back to Greece. I mean, there's probably like a lot of smaller places that are kind of all similar-ish, but yeah, there's loads of different places I'd like to try, but those are the ones that come into my head. The Monopoly wall. Oh yeah. What can I do? Yeah, I agree that Wingspan is a great theme to help games break through. I just think I would like to see that on a slightly more approachable game. But I haven't played it, so I can't fully comment. But it doesn't feel like a game that you can sell in like a supermarket and a lot of people are going to get into. It is kind of a next step thing. I've never played Thunderstone Quest. When I decide to get rid of a game, how do I do it? Well, it depends, but I generally sell or trade them. Or have you ever done a top games of all time? I haven't, and I'm quite scared of the prospect. So I'm not sure if I ever will, but maybe. How about Finland? There's a board game con at the end of the night. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to go to Finland. I'd love to go to, most places, but it's all about money. So anyway, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you for everyone for your questions. I'm sorry about all the trouble at the start. Hopefully next time I'll get it sorted out and have it working a bit better. But do let me know what you think about me kind of filming a Q&A in this setting, and where hopefully it's a bit of an improvement. And thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support the channel and keep it going, then please consider backing on Patreon at patreon.com/Actualol. I'm Jon Purkis. Thanks for watching.